In today's video, I'm going to go through exactly how to follow an animal-based or ancestral diet. The main meat that you want to be eating is going to be red meat. The reason being it is very nutrient dense. The most nutrient dense way to eat. Ruminant animals like cows, elk, lamb, these animals have a different digestive system to humans. They've got 4 compartments to their digestive system and it helps them break down foods a lot more efficiently. So when they're eating things like grass, they're getting all the nutrients from the land, absorbing those nutrients, and then it's being stored in their tissue. So when you look at a grass-fed animal like a cow compared to something like a chicken, pig, the difference is night and day, because chickens and pigs generally are still fed grain. Even if you're getting an organic or pasture-raised chicken or pig, they don't have enough food to feed them just on the paddock alone. So they need to feed them some grain in most cases. 99.9% of cases, you'll still be eating grain. Now the issue with that is, with grain, when you break down what's in it, it's a lot of very cheap and nasty ingredients that goes into that grain. And then same thing with the cow, the chicken and pig is storing the shit from the grain into its tissue. You are then eating the tissue. And that is just one side to it. There is also the other side when you look at antibiotics, vaccines, hormones, all these other areas that are still being stored in the tissue that you're eating. So the best protein you can get is going to be your grass-fed, grass-finished ruminant animals. Beef, lamb, and elk. The next on the priority list would be eggs. So go red meat, eggs as your main protein source. Something you really want to prioritize with your protein is making sure you're getting fatty cuts of meat as well. So where people go wrong, whether it's a carnivore or animal-based diet, they only prioritize lean cuts of meat and they're not getting as much nutrients, because yes, it's high in protein, but the most of the nutrients are stored in the fat tissue. So if you've got a weight loss goal, obviously eating heaps high calorie and calorie dense cuts of meat isn't going to be the best option for you all the time, but you can tailor it in a way where maybe you do 50% of the meat you're eating is lean and the other half is fatty. So you are still getting the nutrients from the fatty cuts of meat, but you're not blowing out your calories by eating only fatty meat. So that's just a rough ballpark. It's not like a set in stone rule. So obviously it needs to be tailored to you specifically, but that is something that I like to implement with my clients depending on what their goals are and where they're at. Wild caught fish is another great addition, but you don't want to get farmed fish, because farmed fish, same as the chicken and pig, fed a lot of antibiotics and bullshit feed, which you're going to be eating because it's stored in its tissue. Then you have the other side of things where it is salmon, especially they use dyes and things like that in it to make it a different color so it looks sellable, because when you get real salmon from a farmed fish, it looks pretty fucking awful. So they literally add food dye into it. Next time you go to the shops, supermarket, check the packet and it will say red dye added to it. So you're literally eating food coloring in your salmon when you're trying to be healthy. So wild caught fish, grass-fed, grass-finished beef is going to be the way to go. If you can't afford those things or you don't have access to those things, eating grain-fed beef is still going to be a better option than 99% of shit you'll buy at the shops. The next addition we're going to have in the ancestral or animal-based diet is going to be your fruits. And the reason I love including fruits is because you're still getting the benefits of carbohydrates without all of the bullshit. There is a bit of a war going on between, you know, strict carnivores and like the flexible dieting crowd that think you should be eating fucking overnight oats and burgers every fucking day. And then you've got carnivores like, nah, all carbs are killing you. This meets somewhere in the middle, a happy, beautiful medium where you're still getting the benefits of carbs, but you're not having all the other bullshit ingredients that come with it. The pasta, cereal, bread, toast, all this stuff is very heavily sprayed with pesticides and then also has a shitload of bullshit ingredients like emulsifiers and preservatives in those products that you are eating. And a big issue that athletes find, not even athletes, but regular people, when you're eating this high carb diet, you feel bloated, you feel tired, sluggish. But when you switch to eating fruit as your primary carb source, you're not getting all of the other bullshit with it, especially if you're eating organic and you're washing it properly. So the benefit of eating this way is you don't need to spend 6 months, getting into ketosis. And I'm currently in ketosis because I'm healing my gut. And it takes a long time to actually feel the benefits and get the performance gains from ketosis. And even still, I've been doing a strict line diet. I still feel better and felt better when I was including carbs. I've tried and tested all variations of the carnivore diet, and I strongly believe that including a little bit of fruit, you don't need to go crazy and eat it every meal, but some form of carbs to support your training and performance goes a long way. The other thing with adding in fruits is it gives you a lot more variety and it's a lot more enjoyable. A big issue that I find with carnivores is that, people do it for 30 days and then they just go back to eating bullshit after, because you're not really building any lifelong habits in the process. And if you go and ask 10 people if they could eat steak for the rest of their life, I would say fucking 0.3 of them would say, yeah, they could only eat steak for the rest of their life. So most people quit because they're not really focusing on building a lifestyle. And the issue I have with it is when people quit, they feel like a failure, so they go back to doing what they're doing before. Ancestral eating is a great place to go if you've started the carnivore diet, maybe you've done a 30-day challenge, or maybe you're doing it for gut healing or health reasons, but you want to start adding in a little bit more variety and you don't know where to go. The ancestral way of eating is the best place to start there. You make it more of a lifestyle, not just a 30-day challenge. And I'm not talking shit about the carnivore diet. I think it's an amazing diet. But when we eat this way, there's so much more variety. You can enjoy yourself, feel better, not feel as restrictive, and actually get a little bit more, depth in your diet. And I have found with the Lion diet, there are some nutrients that are missing. So adding in some things like sauerkraut, fruit, avocado, eggs, dairy, all these other things in there really helps give you a nice amount of nutrients and a broad amount of nutrients in your diet. Aside from sweet fruits, you can also include non-sweet fruits. And this is something that people, when they're doing an animal-based diet, often forget. Fruits aren't just the sweet ones where you eat them seasonally. You can also include things like pumpkin, cucumber, pickles, zucchini, avocado, which gives you even more variety. On top of that, I like including fermented foods. Now, this isn't something that Paul Saladino includes, and he's the animal-based OG, but the reason I do like including them is because when you ferment vegetables, you break down the anti-nutrients and it builds beneficial bacteria for your gut. So it's a really good way to eat vegetables, and that's probably the only way that you'll ever see me eating any form of vegetable. So I'll usually get cabbage or beetroot that has been fermented and made into sauerkraut or kimchi. It's a really nice addition to the diet to help with your gut, but also to add some variety in there as well. On top of that, raw dairy is a great addition. Dairy is a really common one people get confused with. You can eat the pasteurized dairy, or should I eat the raw dairy, or what do I do? The main thing you want to focus on is if you're not getting raw dairy, you don't really need to prioritize it. So say in Australia, for example, it's very hard for us to access raw dairy. So don't go out of your way to prioritize it. Only include it, really to add a little bit of enjoyment and maybe have some desserts with your diet. Like, you can still include it, but don't go eating it thinking that pasteurized dairy is, really beneficial for you, because it's not. If it's raw, in that case, it is really beneficial because the beneficial bacteria hasn't been heated up and destroyed like they do when they pasteurize the dairy. So raw cheese, raw milk, kefir, all these options are really healthy gut healing foods. But in saying that, where people go wrong with this is that they try and introduce it way too soon. So they might be battling some serious gut issue, maybe Crohn's, IBD or IBS, and they go straight into adding raw dairy and they go, oh fuck, it didn't work for me. It's something that you need to build on, and your gut needs to be strong enough to handle it, because it is quite tough for the gut to handle, and you can't just go straight into drinking it. But it is, if you can handle it, it is an amazing addition to your diet. Now, a couple other things that we can include that aren't technically, animal-based, but I do include them in an ancestral diet if you can tolerate them. Things like sweet potato or even potato, but the key is to peel them and make sure they're boiled. So when you peel and boil them, it breaks down a lot of the plant defense chemicals and anti-nutrients and makes it a lot easier for you to digest. The other thing that I would recommend doing is having some form of natural sweeteners. So I like using honey, maple syrup, or cacao powder to give you a little bit more variety and flavor in your diet, especially if you've got a sweet tooth. Something that works really well, my favorite thing, is a frozen banana smoothie, a little bit of cacao powder, coconut water. It tastes like a chocolate thick shake. So this is another area that I'm talking about where it really makes it much more sustainable for you than a strict carnivore diet, because you can satisfy your sweet tooth instead of just, trying to white knuckle your way through craving. So it's a really great place to start. For cooking oils, I mainly cook with tallow. You can cook with ghee or butter, but we're not cooking with any seed oils, definitely no seed oils, but also not cooking with olive oil, because at a high temp, it becomes rancid and it can actually be harmful to you. So cooking with tallow, I find, is the best because it does have the highest cooking temp, and I find it doesn't burn, which is really beneficial, obviously, when you're cooking steaks all the time as well. So what we're avoiding is all of the bullshit. Rice bread, cereal, pasta, all of the fucking ultra processed garbage, chocolate chips, fucking fizzy drinks, soft drinks, energy drinks, all of that bullshit. We're avoiding seed oils. And one of the big things that you'll notice is when you start trying to avoid seed oils, this is something that really blew my mind. Seed oils are in everything that you find at the shops, literally everything, even vitamins. I was getting a vitamin D supplement and I was looked on the side and it had safflower oil in it, which is a seed oil. I'm like, this is supposed to be good for me and there's fucking seed oils in it. So really important, you're reading the labels, you'll notice seed oils are in everything. Probably all of your sauces, your plant-based milk, your cereal, your fucking rice cakes, all these different things are covered in seed oils because they're cheap, easy to make, and very profitable. So they're in all of your ultra-processed foods, which is why ancestral eating is the best way to eat. But you know, you can, and probably the most controversial thing that we're not eating is leafy greens. So leafy greens like spinach, broccoli, kale, these are all very high in oxalates and plant defense chemicals. You know, if you really feel the need to include them in your diet, you can, but I definitely do recommend having a period of time where you're not including them and see how you feel. And in most cases that I've worked with, people feel much better not including the leafy greens as opposed to including them. That is the ancestral diet in a nutshell. Very keen for you to give it a go. If you've got any questions on that, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, there's a free guide just below this video. Click the link and I'll send it through to you. Thank you.